Hey guys, thanks for stopping by and welcome to C4D Central, your source for video tutorials for MAXON Cinema 4D. Today we're gonna have a look at XPresso and peek behind the curtain of this mysterious tool which involves such infamous things like programming. Ooh, no, computer science. But don't be afraid. Firstly, we're only going to scratch the surface of this mighty tool today and won't dive in too much. And secondly, after watching this tutorial, you should realize that XPresso is in fact quite easy and quick to learn. But why would you wanna learn it anyway? Well, let's have a quick look at this demo reel which I made recently. Alright, I hope you like this reel and see what I'm up to. Most of the animations were made using mainly XPresso and some other tools like Python, but main things were done in XPresso. But also without having such animations in mind, XPresso can help you with your daily general works. So don't be put off, let's stop talking and get started. Alright, cinema is running and first question is, how do we even get to start XPresso? How can we do something with it? Well, the only way to get to XPresso is by using tags, and so we need to have at least one object in our scene. It does not have to contain geometry, so a null object will do just fine, and we create this null object, right click it, Cinema 4D text, and here right at the bottom there is XPresso. After creating the tag, as you can see, the XPresso editor opens automatically and we see empty space. Okay, what's this? This is our working environment, and for the moment we are doing nothing. It's just an empty desk, if you will. And everything we're gonna do in the future will happen inside this editor here. XPresso is a graphical based programming language, which means that we do not have to write text-based programs as you would know them from C++ or Python, for example. So perfect for beginners because it's very easy to understand how a program is built up and which value is used in which case or something like that. But we're gonna see it right now because XPresso is based on nodes, and I can create a node by just drag and dropping an object from the object manager into the XPresso editor, and we see this little block. And this is a node, and it will be the building block of my program, which is also called expression. So XPresso programs are called expressions. And this node now represents my object and every value it has, every attribute. So for example, if I just select it here in the object manager, go to attributes, I can see, it has several values for its X position, Y position, Z position, rotation, etc. And let's say I want to work with them. I want to change, for example, the Y position or the Z position, or in another case, I want to know this position because I want to use it to influence my scene in any way. And yeah, to get to these values, I have to use this node. The input values are on the left side with the blue rectangle, and if I left click it, I can select several things, and the same thing applies to the right side with the red rectangle. And let's just say I want to know which is the current Y position of my null object. So I'm gonna select the red rectangle here with my left mouse button and go to coordinates, position Y. And yeah, I see not much now for the moment because I just have activated this port, but I'm not working with it. So I'm gonna do a right click, go to new node, XPresso general, and there's this result node. And I can connect two ports by just clicking and dragging. So I click into this little circle and drag the connection here. And yeah, the result switches to 28, and I can check that by clicking on my null object here and go to the attributes manager, and I see, okay, 28, this looks good. And I already see this little rectangle. This is a little hint that I know, okay, this value is used in some expression in my scene. So especially later, if you wonder why do these strange things happen, maybe there's still an expression that's constantly changing some values. Well, okay, now I just, yeah, I'm just reading this value. I'm not doing very much. Maybe I just want to change this value. So instead of using it as an output, I use it as an input. So I go to the left side here to the blue rectangle, go to coordinates, position Y, and I want to write a specific value now. So I can just right click, go to new node, XPresso, general again, and then constant. And there I can yeah, enter random values as I want. And first I have to draw the connection here, and maybe you've seen it, the null object jumped down to the bottom because the default value of my constant is 0. And so I'm now already writing this value, and I can check that here and look into the attributes manager and see, okay, it's set to 0, and now I can't change anything here because my expression always overrides every other command. I can only stop this by disabling it if I select the expression tag here and yeah, disable it here in the attributes manager. And as you've maybe seen, here's a double rectangle now, which hints me that yeah, this value is not only used in an expression to read it out, but it's also yeah, the expression is writing on it. So I cannot change this here. I have to change my constant, so I go into the XPresso editor, select it, and yeah, as with every other node, I can see their settings and their attributes in the attributes manager, and yeah, select the constant, go to node value, and yeah, we can change this here and can see how our null object is moving. I know this is a really theoretical example, but I think it just shows the basic principles of XPresso. You have those nodes, you have input values, you have output values, you have those ports which you can use to draw connections, and yeah, everything is working in this XPresso editor, and of course you can just close this editor and everything is still working. So in this example I still cannot change this value here. Of course I can change the other values because I'm only writing I'm only controlling the Y value. So X and Z are perfectly fine. only Y is locked. Alright, this just for starters, just delete everything and yeah, let's get to a more practical example. Let's say you are just designing a hut or I don't know, something like this, and you are using a lot of text splines which display different texts or names. Just say we have John, and now we have Martha, and now we have Stephen, and something like this. And of course a lot more, and not only 3 but maybe 10 or 20 or even more splines. Okay, so now just looking at the viewport, everything is fine, but to manage your whole project, this is not fine, because if you look in the object manager, you see this is text, text point 1, text point 2, and so on. And imagine you have 20 or 50 text splines sitting here, and you say, I have to change Martha, then you have to look for it. And yeah, I know you have ways like selecting the object here, but okay, in this simple example, it's really quick because we only have these 3 splines, but imagine a giant scene with thousands of other stuff flying around, and yeah, it will not be that easy. So yeah, how can XPresso help us with that? We're gonna delete these 2 and just concentrate on this one here first. And yeah, as seen before, we do a right click on it in MorphoDTEX XPresso, and yeah, the XPresso editor opens up. And yeah, as I said, we can change every attribute that an object has, and of course one of the attributes of this text spline is of course, yeah, it's text, and we can just drag and drop our text inside here and set a new output port by clicking on the red rectangle, and the attribute that I've mentioned is found under object properties and then text. And so here we see everything that we have written inside this little box here. You can also double check this by right clicking inside the XPresso editor and go to XPresso general result as seen before, but now we cannot just connect these 2. We can if we want to, but it doesn't make much sense. It displays 0. That's because of the set data type, and if we look here in the attributes manager, it's set to real, which means it's awaiting some kind of number, but the text in this field does not count as a number, even if I write numbers here. If I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, this is surprisingly working, but yeah, it's not working with text. If I say John 117, it's not working. And to change this, I go to the result node, to its attributes, and set the data type to string, because normally everything involving text is stored as the data type string. And now I can see John 117 is my result here. And yeah, just as a little side info, and to control if everything is working as we want to. Now we just have to change the name of our spline, and then we are done. So we just drag and drop it again here, and now we need to set this as an input value. So we go to the blue rectangle, left click, and now it's under basic properties and name. And yeah, what we are just doing is we are gonna write the text that we have entered in the attributes of the text spline to its name, to its object name. And maybe you've already seen it, it has switched to John 117 in this case. So if I close it and yeah, just rename it here to, let's say, Cinema 4D or something like that, it changes the spline itself, but also the object's name. And yeah, everything, if we double click the tag, we open the editor again, and yeah, everything here, those objects nodes are by default absolute references. That means that this tag perfectly knows that this spline is connected to him, that it's referenced here in the expression in this little program. This means also that I can just put it to another object and it's still working perfectly fine. I can I've now assigned the tag to this null object, and it's not connected anymore to the spline object, but I can still change the values here, and it updates still. You can change this, of course, but yeah, just for the beginning, keep in mind by default, XPresso is working globally, absolutely, and yeah, the tag can be assigned to everything, and doesn't need to stay on a specific object. So let's yeah, reposition it here. The thing is now, if I copy this spline, copy paste, and yeah, reposition it a little bit so that we can see it better. Now that I've copied it, the reference was like yeah, recreated. So this new tag refers to this new spline object. And yeah, that's just the trick. I can now select this new spline object and write another name here. And it also changes the object's name. And so now I can just create a lot of splines and yeah, can give them all separate names or separate texts. I don't know, just some random names, and everything is working just fine, and I can keep order in my scene, and yeah, it's pretty obvious which spline belongs to which object here in the objects manager. Alright, let's delete everything. That's yeah, the first practical and very simple example. Let's get to a little bit more difficult example. Let's say we have a sphere. Just make it a little bit bigger for this example, and we have a cube. And yeah, let's say for some reason that we want to have the cube sitting on top of the sphere, but only touching it. So if we go to the side view here, we do not want to have this. We do not want to see them intersect each other. We just want to touch them at this little point here. And the difficulty will be we want to have this dynamically. So if I change the radius of the sphere, I want the cube to follow it and keep touching it. And also if I change its own size of the cube shall reposition itself automatically. And if I change the position of the sphere, I want the cube to follow it. So let's reset everything to normal, and yeah, take a little look. Well, I think it's makes more sense to get into this view, the side view. And yeah, of course we have to create a little XPresso tag, so go to Cinema 4D tags XPresso, and yeah, we're gonna work with these two objects, so it makes sense to drag and drop them here. And yeah, as we've seen, we can we can use every attribute of the object, and now we have to think about what attributes we really need here. So obviously we're gonna need the position of the sphere. Oh, I forgot to mention, to make it a little bit easier, we're just gonna concentrate on the y-axis here. So we do not want to make it too complicated. We just want to say, okay, everything stays fine. X value and z value is always 0, and thing is just changing alongside the y-axis. Okay, so we need the y position of our sphere, and we can get it by clicking on the red rectangle, go to coordinates, position y. And we obviously also need its radius, because that's defining the surface of the sphere. So we also gonna go to the output values, go to object properties this time, and select radius. Okay, now we just need the cube size, the y size of the cube, and we get this by going to its output values, and then object properties and size, and then lastly size y. So now we have our basic values, and we have to do a little calculation with them to reposition our cube dynamically. What do we have to do? First, we're gonna have to add up the position of the sphere and its radius to get to this point here. And we can do that by right-clicking, new node, XPresso, calculate, and then math. And you see already here in the name it's set to add. So this means that this node just adds the value of the first input to the second input, and the output is the sum of both. And we can do that. Just connect those ports, and as I said, there's a result node. So go to new node, XPresso, general result, and I cannot say it often enough. Always check your results, because the devil is hiding in the details, and if your expression is not working correctly, that's probably because you've messed something up here. So if you check the results which are calculated in the meantime, you will find your mistakes relatively quick. And we see this calculates 400, and we can just check the input values. It will be true, of course, but just to get an understanding, our sphere is now standing on 0 position, and its radius is 400, so of course the connection point has to be at y 400. And well, that's not the result that we can work with, because if we now would reposition our cube, we can just do that. We just drag and drop him here and go to the input values, the blue rectangle, go to coordinates, position y, and let's just connect him here, and zack, he's sitting inside the sphere with half of its y size. Why is that? Because the position of objects is of course always related to this coordinate system here, and the size of the cube goes radially from this center away. So if the cube is, let's say, 200 centimeters high, that means it's 100 centimeters in plus y direction and minus 100 centimeters in the other. So we have to add half of its own size to this position so that it can that it will be a little higher positioned here. So we're gonna delete this connection, and yeah, we need the size of the cube, and we have to divide it by 0. So just never divide by 0, if in case you don't want the whole universe to explode. So we're just gonna copy this math node here by holding down Control and just drag and drop it to the side. And as I said, we can look for the settings of the nodes in the attribute manager, and we see here under the node tab that the function is set to add, and we change it to divide. And if we go to the parameters, we can set the second input to 2, which means that the first input is always divided by the second input, and so we will divide by 2. And yeah, we need to connect the first input to the size of our cube. And now we need to add again. We need to add our first result to this second result. So now we can just copy this add node a second time and connect the 2 results here, and now set the final result to the position of our cube, and we see this looks a lot better. And now if we change, for example, the radius of our sphere, the cube is traveling up and down. And of course, when I reposition the sphere, or if I change the Y size of the cube, it always looks a little bit better in 3D. So we changed the view here and have another look. And I think, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Our cube is only touching the surface of the sphere, but never intersecting. All right, yeah, that's it for today. We're just gonna sum up what we've learned. Yeah, XPresso is this graphical-based programming language inside of Cinema 4D. We can only reach it by creating a tag on some kind of object. By using the default values, it doesn't matter where this tag is. I tend to always create a null object and name it something like XP main or main control or something like this, and assign my XPresso values to this null object. So I only have to look for this object to get to every expression that's in my scene, but yeah, that's just the way you like it. You can do it, yeah, you can do it the same way if you want to, or you just leave the tags assigned to the specific objects. Yeah, we have these nodes. The nodes have inputs and have outputs, and yeah, the only thing that's a little bit unnerving is if you have mistakes in your expressions. Like let's I hope everybody is strapped in, because we're gonna blow up the universe and divide by 0 here. And now we see, okay, this here's a mistake, and in this case, it's highlighted. It's with this yellow highlight, we see okay, there's a mistake in my expression, and you will experience it as now. Okay, the expression in this case is still working. There are some cases like what's a good example? This is a little bit too obvious, but what's unnerving is if you, for example, delete this sphere. Okay, now nothing makes sense, of course, but in your expression you don't see any highlighting. You just see here at the beginning of everything there's this object node and the output ports are undefined. And if this happens, your expression is automatically disabled, but there's no highlighting. And thing is, this expression here is rather small and you see everything in one view. But imagine a giant expression where everything here is full of nodes, and there it's quite complicated to find the reason for your expression that's not working. So just keep that in mind. That an undefined object node can be one of the first reasons for an error. But don't get put off by this. XPresso itself is really easy to learn, and we're gonna do some more tutorials on XPresso in the future here on this channel. So stay tuned. I hope you liked it. It was the first tutorial in English on this channel, and I'm going to continue at least this series about XPresso also in English. So if you liked the video, please leave me a like. I'd be happy about it, and maybe even subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything I'll upload in the future. Okay, then I wish you all a nice day, and much fun with XPresso and your expressions. If you have any questions or something stayed unclear for you, please let me know in the comments below, and I'm gonna try to help you. Bye bye.